supposed to say SMU on the call.
Okay.
I'm sure those are my chamber that they're working on a new logo. And she hasn't gotten me anything.
Oh,
I said, well, it's kind of locked in, but that's not. Because I haven't heard anything. The reason we weren't on this now is just because it costs extra. And we were trying to keep it as low cost, because they'll give us the name for it, like there's no charge. But if you start to, I love that. All that.
Well,
But it does cost.
Chris Brown, he said, yeah, town now, but, of what town, they have hot and cold, they have 2 water towers.
We were gonna clock them 90 degrees out. You know how this one we see it east and west, that one's gonna be north, south. So wherever you're coming from, you should be able to see. You can see it from the
Oh,
interstate
yeah,
pretty
I don't
good.
know how many people, what is that, man, they just have this, this missile silo.
Yeah. I see people just parked over there watching work on.
I took a few pictures.
Yeah. It's neat.
Well, that flashing bright at the cultural center. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But he said, it just under the shingles up to the concrete, that's where you got the leak. And when it starts to flash.
I didn't know, they're not done, are they?
Oh, no.
Yeah, yeah. They just, yeah, it's gonna take it a while to turn black.
I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. We'll call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of Stuart Municipal Utilities. It's Thursday, or it's Monday, it's Monday. It's Monday, March 13th. And so we'll take a roll call. Kim?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
I'm here. Shirley is not here. Craig?
Here.
We're going to change the agenda here a little bit because of the electronics we've got set up here. So we're going to move item number 6 to after item number 11. So if that's okay, we'll call for a motion to approve the agenda in the consent agenda. Minutes of the regular meeting of February 9th, 2023. Special joint meeting of February 13th, 23. Financial statement as of February 28th, and the bills as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Moved by Craig,
I'll second.
and seconded by Kim. We'll proceed to vote. Kim?
Yes.
Brian? Yep. And Craig.
Aye.
Okay, agenda item number 5, Schneider and Associates, review and approval of elevated water storage tank pay applications number 4 for Caldwell tanks. Coming right along with it, Bruce.
They are. They got a lot of welding to do now. They got it mostly put together. So, we were working on it today. It's cold.
Welcome, Shirley.
Yeah, I could lie and say I didn't see the clock, but I took a nap.
The advantage of being retired, right?
That's what retirement is.
So is the board members have any questions about this pay application? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Moved by Kim, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Craig. I think it's Brian.
No.
I vote aye. Shirley?
I'm gonna say aye, because I just see what you're talking about. Yeah.
Craig?
Last one.
Aye.
and Kim.
Yes.
That's the last one.
Okay, we're gonna go to, do you wanna go here? Oh, to item number 7, utility property liability insurance renewal, United Risk. You know, before you start, Joe.
Sure.
We had as most of you know, we had a joint meeting last month. And this topic came up. And it wasn't supposed to because it wasn't on the agenda. Which surprised me a little bit, but that's the way it was. And I was accused of being unfair about this. That the question was, should we allow a competitor to have the declarations from our current policy? And I was accused of saying that I had told staff that they shouldn't do that. And that's not accurate. What I said was, I do have an objection to that, but that is a matter of public record. And anybody that comes in here and asks for it is entitled to that information. And it's a little bit like, and I look upon this as the agency that we've worked with for as long as I can remember. And they've done an excellent job over the years. I was part of that. And we need to remember that these people, United Risk, are the authors of this policy. They're the ones who wrote it. They went out and did the legwork, and over the years have kept it up to date and current so that we've had the best coverage that our money can buy. And for someone to come in and ask for the information that they authored, to me, is a little bit unusual. Now, I understand that's the conventional wisdom. That's the way it's done in insurance. But just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should. It's a little bit like going over there to the library. And an author writes a book, it goes in the library, anybody can come in and check out that book. And it's theirs to use however they want. And they can use anything in that book they want. But it's best if they attribute where they got the book, where the idea came from. The book that it came from. So that's my objection. So it's true that I have an objection to it, but it's not true that I denied anybody the right to that information because they have the right to that information. So with that said, I want to welcome both agencies here, and I'm looking forward to hearing your presentation. But know that there's not much truth to the fact that I tried to deny anybody right to a piece of public information. So, Joe and Janice, go ahead.
Great. Well, thank you all for the opportunity. Do you have copies of this already?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Well, thanks again.
One.
One? Okay. So again, appreciate the opportunity to speak to the group this evening. My opening question, one thing that I do want to understand, we came here last year and gave a rather lengthy presentation to this group and to the city council. What I recognize is that you have busy agendas, so we can go as in-depth as you want into coverages or differences or talk very high level. But I do want to make sure that I answer any of the questions that this group would have related to, our program is with EMC insurance. If we do have a competitive proposal, I know ICAP did not bring one last year, but the sentiment we get is maybe they are bringing one this year. So if there are any questions among the programs and coverage differences, I've worked with both groups and can speak to that. What I don't want to do is go through a 45-minute dissertation of every coverage line here and bore you all to tears if that's not something you're looking for. So,
And I appreciate that, Joe, that you're willing to do that, but at the same time, I thought Janice's letter in the beginning of this was very good, because I can attest to the fact that there's not a lot of people that understand this policy. And that at some point in time, I would encourage the board to sit in a work session and have you and Janice come in, or whoever our agent ends up being, come in and spend that time, because there's a lot of this that a lot of people don't understand. Municipal coverage is a very unique type of coverage, and it's one that even the amount of time I spend with it, there's still some that I didn't understand about it. So I would like to offer the opportunity and ask the board to think about coming in and spending a half an hour or 5 minutes with whoever our agent is, looking at this coverage and trying to understand it a little bit better, because we're gonna spend a lot of money here tonight, and I find it a little, you would spend that much money and not know a lot about what. So if you'll all agree to that, we can proceed. Go ahead, Joe.
absolutely. So the letter that John spoke to is on it's the first page of the packet. If you haven't had a chance to read that, while I speak up here and mumble at you, I'd encourage anybody to read that. That was written by Janice from our team. So Janice and I are the two agents on the account. I am obviously not local to Stuart. I come from Tiffin, Iowa. I am our public entity specialist, which means that I work with cities, counties, and school districts across the state of Iowa for agencies that are under our First Main Street platform. And so United Risk Services is one of those agencies. The thing that we've recognized is when it comes to cities or utilities, there's really a power in being able to offer to our buyer the best of both worlds concept, and the idea of a group that specializes in your space, so knows your industry, the pain points, things that are specific to utilities coverage and insurance programs that fit you, but also having members of our team that are local in the community that recognize what's happening here in Stuart, Iowa. And I think Janice does a great job of that for our team here at United Risk Services. So we're the two members of the team. You'll notice in the first couple of pages, it's some marketing information around the program that you're with. So you are with currently the IAMU Safety Group. There's some information around their program. It is a group of cities and utilities across the state of Iowa that come together in kind of a group sharing effort to have program pricing and the ability for EMC to pay back dividends on accounts throughout time if the program is profitable. And so this year, actually, Stuart Utilities was the recipient of the dividend checks, and the information is in the back of this information on the premium page. But that is the program that you're currently with. If you go to the next page, what we like to do is just give our clients an understanding of the service that is performed on an account, because we recognize that the asset that we deliver is an intangible product. So it is really the promise of coverage if and when an event occurs that you need that to respond, and then ongoing service on the account. And so you'll see here stated, this is kind of the Excel looking document. This is our service calendar for the last year. So it's going to speak to some of the work that primarily Janice has done, some work from me, and then your team kind of behind the scenes working with Pat and others on the utilities team and the city. This just gives a high level overview of what we do on the account, in addition to reactive service, things like issuing certificates, auto ID cards, things of that nature. And then if you look at this page here, which is very small writing, I wish they would enhance that a little bit, but this is the loss runs that were provided by EMC Insurance. So what it's going to show is the loss history or what EMC has paid out on this specific account. So one of the things that we do want to recognize that we negotiated back and forth with EMC on is this is going to show what the losses were for this past year. So just so everybody on the board is aware, EMC paid out $73,344 of losses during this policy term, which is more than the policy premium was. So essentially EMC paid out more money back to the utilities for property claims than they took in last year.
What were the claims the year before that?
It was 0 the year before, 0 the year before that, and about 5,000 total in the 2 years prior.
And the premium went up 15% over those years. So I mean, we don't get discounts back when we don't have claims, and so we're just, that's just my way of thinking that the price goes up by 30% because we had a bad year, but we don't get discounts when it goes, we don't have claims. So I don't just look at 1 year, I guess.
Sure. Part of what drives it is there's a combination. The insurance market has a factor, and then account performance has a factor into the pricing that you pay. There's a number of exposure changes that we do want to talk through that is driving some of that premium increase. So it's not purely EMC saying, hey, losses last year, we're going to increase your premium significantly. Part of what it is there's valuation things that we need to discuss because that will be a clear differentiator between your program with EMC and what ICAP would propose based on copying the policies from last year and just utilizing that information.
Is the losses?
Yeah,
Is that a big part of it?
property market in general. So we have a study that we provide to clients. I believe a copy's been provided to Sarah and Ash during one of our premium forecasting meetings. It will show what the insurance marketplace is doing, not specific to Iowa risks, not specific to utilities, but just what's the market doing in general. Property is the biggest pain point for the insurance industry. Derecho is one example, but if you think about insurers, they have to go out and purchase reinsurance for catastrophic weather events that property claims would have happen. And so an event like Hurricane Ian last year, one of the most costly storms in US history, while that doesn't impact Iowa specifically, reinsurance costs for insurance companies are impacted, and that has to be spread around to clients across the nation. So Iowa risks have a smaller percentage that they bear for that, but same thing and the vice versa is, states that are insured with an EMC insurance had a property rate renewal increase last year as a result of derecho that primarily impacted Iowa. So insurance is a group purchasing exercise in which an entity pays premiums to have claims be paid out in the event of loss. Not specific to the utilities, but the city was a significant beneficiary of property claims this year. So similar dynamic, losses are paid out by EMC. They need to make sure that the program is viable for IAMU. And so that's one of the things that property rates go up and valuations go up. And we should talk about that.
When I was doing this, it wasn't so much property as it was workers' compensation in those days. And that I think has calmed down a little bit, but it's
the flip now. Workers' compensation rates are decreasing now and property rates are increasing.
So what's commercial output? Over 60% of the increase is from property and commercial output. So that's from the claim, both of them, or what's commercial output?
So commercial output is electric generating property.
Gotcha.
So there has to be a distinction between the two. The other piece is the equipment breakdown. It's called boiler and machinery in that presentation. That is with Cincinnati Insurance because EMC has to split out. They can't provide equipment breakdown on that line. So again, something that you would need to look at if considering other proposals. Cincinnati's policies on a 3-year rate lock. See that premium the same year over year. If you purchase with ICAP, you need to consider that you need to go out and seek additional equipment breakdown. You need to go out and seek workers' compensation. Those are not going to be provided by ICAP. Variances, that's a great question, but the similar generating, it's on commercial output.
And that's been that way for many, many years,
Correct.
so.
So as we continue to flip through, again, what's in this packet is it's gonna go line by line. So it's gonna start with property coverage, they're gonna do a general liability overview, there's gonna be workers' compensation, commercial auto. The one thing that I really wanna focus on is your property schedule specifically, because that is driving a lot of the increase year over year. So the first page that we put on here that looks like this is something that I want the group to take note of. 114 North Fremont Street. So when EMC came out and looked at the losses from last year, with every entity, they are going through their property schedules and they're having to determine what is a realistic valuation to replace buildings and replace business personal property in the event of loss. And so this building was on an actual cash value basis, this 114 North Fremont Street. When EMC came and took a look at this, what they said is, hey, if you want this to go within your blanket limit of insurance, meaning that if this building is impacted and there's not sufficient limit, and you don't want to have depreciation factored into your valuation after loss, you need to look at the valuation on this building and others. So the cost of labor, the cost of materials have significantly increased. The utilities benefits from having a lot of properties within one blanket limit of insurance. Meaning if there's a loss at a location and the limit on that one particular building isn't sufficient to rebuild it, if it's within the blanket, you can pull from other values to make sure there's not an out-of-pocket loss. And so essentially, one of the things that is causing a significant increase here is we want to put this building within your blanket limit of insurance to make sure a loss that happens at this location, you don't have a negative impact as a result of that. You don't have a big out-of-pocket expense.
So it wouldn't be covered, replacement costs wouldn't have been covered at 100%? Is that the way to understand that?
Correct.
Before, and that's part of the increase as well?
Correct. So actual cash value, again, is gonna be your replacement cost minus any appreciation. Yeah, so that's one of the things that is causing such a big increase is valuation increases there. This isn't specific to Stuart Municipal Utilities or even the city of Stuart. On every account that I work on with both, they are looking at their buildings and saying, hey, we need to make sure that the actual values are sufficient enough. If we're gonna put things on a blanket basis, we need to make sure that those values would actually be enough to have buildings and business personal property replaced in the event of loss. So again, this is a pain point that's not specific to SMU. This is something that every public entity is seeing within different programs. This is the part that,
Just before you go on, I want to point out that this blanket limit of insurance is a real advantage to a client. To have coverage written on a blanket basis, but just like Joe said, if one building is damaged, they add all the values of all the buildings we have and come up with one blanket limit of insurance. And as long as that building is insured to value, in other words, is it 90%?
it's 90%.
Value, as long as it comes up to that value, then the coverage is gonna be paid on a replacement cost basis. Even if it's only 95%, if it's insured to only 95% of its value, it's still gonna be covered at replacement cost. So that's a real advantage in blanket coverage, so.
Especially with a utility, because what you order is so volatile with pricing, and it really is hard to put a specific value on what it would cost to replace, specific transformers or older buildings. Having that blanket limit there should be a comfort in knowing that you have a greater bucket to pull from.
And as long as we and the insurance company agree that that's a value, that is value, regardless of what it takes to replace it, it's gonna be replaced.
That's correct, including architects, engineers, fees, everything that, the costs that you don't think of necessarily, that is included. So if you're okay with it, I can hit on all these pages, but I will skip through the statement of values pages unless you want to talk specifically. A lot of the next information, it's going to be info on some of the property coverage part endorsements. It's going to show you these are the laundry list of coverages that you have in the event of loss. Transparently, again, if I go line by line on these and explain, off-premise utility service interruption, into brand and labels expense, into expediting expense, I think I will bore the group to tears, but in the work session, let's have that conversation. We'd love to do it.
So your work with Pat, did you find any buildings that we needed, besides the AC to replacement costs, did you find any that we had to increase value?
Yeah, so when EMC came out, what they essentially did was they provided us a detailed survey report of, hey, we've been out here, these are the buildings. We can get each individual building that they looked at and ask for their report that will show square footage on the buildings. It'll show the cost that they utilized to compute their total. So each building varied. It was how much it varied. EMC's standard inflationary increase throughout the program, I know right now, is at 9%. If there doesn't need to be a jump like 114 Fremont Street, they use 9%. And again, that's purely material and labor costs are increasing at a rate that they feel like to protect their clients, it needs to go at least 9%.
Okay, that's changed a lot, because when I was doing this 100 years ago, it was 2 and 3%.
And that's what it's been historically for a long time. And I think, if you consider just what the world's been for the last 2 to 3 years, what it costs to build versus what it would have cost to build a home in 2019, 2018, insurance isn't unique to, especially on big commercial builds, it's a similar story. And so EMC is utilizing values that they think are fair and within reason. Having said that, we can look at any building and push back. We've had a conversation with Pat just to review building values, but if there's any specific building that is out of line, if we look at this, we can certainly go back to EMC. One of the things that we did do was get them to agree to include 114 Fremont Street into the blanket based on it being at that actual cash value before. So those are coverage things that we're looking for each year at renewal in addition to just ongoing work. So long answer to your question is there were variances on all of the buildings to a certain extent. If you flip through and continue to go, business auto, I think that's a pretty good property and commercial output overview. But again, if there's any other specific questions, we can cover those at the end. Business auto, this will show an overview of all the vehicles and the limits that you have with EMC. One of the biggest ones to look at is you have a liability symbol 1 at $2 million per occurrence. What that means is that any auto that is involved in an accident, if Stuart Municipal Utilities is brought into suit based on liability, regardless of if it's an SMU vehicle or it's a employee's vehicle and they're out driving, or it's a hired auto, something that you're renting, because you have symbol 1 coverage, this policy is going to respond and protect SMU regardless of the vehicle. So it's something that, again, if you're looking to make a coverage change, you would always want to verify that you have the proper liability protection, because we recognize a lot of times it's, hey, someone needs to run to the bank or needs to go grab some equipment and supplies, hop in your personal vehicle and go grab that stuff and come back to work. In the event that that were to happen and there's an accident and SMU is brought into suit, which they would if it's an individual on company time, this is going to respond and protect SMU. So the other information, you'll see all the vehicles listed in the pages after. There are, let's see, 6, looks like 9 total vehicles and trailers that are on the policy. They have deductible limits of $500 for comp and collision. I believe them. So that is what the commercial auto policy looks like.
Does this include equipment that's attached to those vehicles, like our bucket truck and that kind of thing?
Bucket truck would be mobile equipment floater. This is more so autos, and the trailers that would be pulled behind are included on that policy. So, good question. Any other questions for commercial auto? Okay. General liability, this is gonna be property damage or bodily injury as a result of on-premise liability or any ongoing operations. And so one thing with SMU specifically, a big driver of general liability increases and something that we see often, it's a disadvantage to utility companies in Iowa or municipal utilities in particular, the strict liability component that says there essentially doesn't need to be fault or negligence for you to be liable as a utility. That is often one of the things that comes up on general liability claims, is the fact that there's not as much burden of proof on claimant to say that their damage needs to be paid by the utilities. So we have a lot of other utilities that we work with. I have one in particular that they have a lot of water claims where residents have water backup that insurance has to respond and pay, and it's just based on the strict liability portion. So there's a lot of claims that hit general liability for utilities. So this policy specifically, $2 million per occurrence, $4 million in the aggregate. It is rated off of payroll, and there is a abuse and molestation charge. The program has coverage for A&M just based on the fact that you go on site or on premise. If the utilities is brought into suit for that, that coverage will respond. So general liability, again, property damage, bodily injury as a result of on premise, somebody being on your facility or your actual ongoing operations, which is where most of these claims fall.
Where do the legal fees come in for a claim? Are the legal fees included in this limit or in excess of this?
That, I want to say it's in excess, but I would need to confirm that. I need to look at the policy forms. I believe it's outside of the limit, so they will pay up to $2 million for damages per occurrence, and then legal fees sit outside, but
As I recall, that's what it was.
let me confirm that for you, because I need to review the forms. So, any questions on general liability? Okay, next piece here is or cyber insurance. So again, if you purchase outside of EMC, this is another policy that you would need to purchase on an individual basis. ICAP does have coverage built within their standard policy, but it's limited to $250,000 for first and third party coverage. You do a group purchasing program with a company called CFC. Jester Insurance is the master general broker on this. This is a comprehensive policy that will respond in the event of some type of cyber breach or cyber liability claim, provides first and third party coverage. So first is in the event that SMU is the one that has the actual financial loss, and you need to be reimbursed for your financial loss. That's first party coverage. Third party coverage is in the event that somebody's personally identifying information or a vendor's information is stolen as the result of a breach in your system, and you were sued because of that breach, third party coverage applies. This has both $1 million aggregate versus $250 on ICAP's form. So this is something that you would want to look at purchasing on the line in the event you went elsewhere outside of EMC, and there's obviously a cost.
The losses here have increased exponentially too.
This is the most volatile market out there, even more so than property, which we discussed, just based on if you do any Google search of cyber liability claims, they're all over the place. One of the big benefits, again, to being part of the program is there's a group purchasing effort through that CFC deal. So you're gonna see a total premium, at the end of the presentation for cyber specifically. If SMU goes to purchase $1 million policy monoline on your own, my guess is you're looking to 8,000 to 10,000 for that policy versus I think it's 4,000 within the group purchasing. And again, it's just a benefit of similar exposures, similar groups purchasing this together collaboratively. So,
But the reason for the 2.5 times increase is the substantial claims outside of us, and so.
it's a combination. One of the things is that there was overlap in reporting previously from city and utilities. Revenue that was given was a combination of city and utilities revenue. So part of the big increase this year is in part because you're in a new revenue band this year that you weren't in previously, based on the actual information being reported.
How many years have we had this policy? Or had the cyber portion?
It's probably been, it was going before.
I know Lauren had this in place prior
More
to.
than 5 years.
So it's been erroneous for 5 years, and we just caught it this last year?
It's based on, again, we get the information.
Yeah, I'm not blaming you, I'm just saying it's never been caught until now.
Well, the city's been paying.
It's, the answer to your question is we've reported the figures every year, and
Yeah.
we haven't gone back historically and figured out if you would have been in a different revenue tier each and every year based on it. It's just now we can clearly see that, you need to be in this revenue tier. They have 3 different tiers in the program, and it's just based on overall revenue, so, yes. Next board.
So
Agreed.
there's a lot of the statute involved in that too, so.
Next is workers' compensation coverage. So, work comp, very simply, in the event an employee is injured during the course of their job duties, workers' compensation is gonna respond and pay for medical bills and any indemnities, so lost time and wages. You will see here that there are exposures in the bottom, it's payrolls that drive the cost of this. So with both general liability and workers' compensation, if you are comparing policies or programs, you'll always want to look and make sure that the exposures are written the same. So for general liability and for workers' compensation, it's primarily payroll driven. So you'll want to make sure that the same payrolls were used because they will do an audit, whether you're with EMC or you're with ICAP. So make sure those are the same, and then property, again, just valuations, make sure that those are the same if you're gonna compare apples to apples, that's the way that you do it. SMU has a experience mod factor of 0.92, which is a good thing for the utilities. What that essentially means is you're getting an 8% credit on your workers' compensation coverage. You pay 8% less than another utility somewhere else in the state of Iowa that has the exact same payrolls as you. And it's based on the fact that your period were less than expected. Kudos to Pat and the team for getting a workers' compensation discount on that 0.92 experience mod factor. Any questions there? Then the final piece is the commercial umbrella. So SMU has $1 million umbrella currently. You'll see on this page, it sits over a number of underlying coverages. So it's gonna sit over your commercial auto, each accident limit, it's gonna sit over your general liability, each occurrence limit, and all the other limits that fall under general liability. It's gonna sit over your employer's liability limits on your workers' compensation. So really quick overview, these rarely get used, but in the event you have an employee that's hurt, that instead of electing state of Iowa workers' compensation benefits, which are widely considered comprehensive compared to other states and most view as favorable, so many elect into state of Iowa work comp benefits. If you have an employee that decides that they do not want to elect those benefits, but instead want to say that SMU was liable for their injuries and wants to sue SMU instead of getting those benefits, that's where your employer's liability limits kick in. So you have $500,000 per accident, $500,000 per employee for injury by disease, and a $500,000 policy limit, your $1 million umbrella will sit over those underlying limits of insurance as well. So it's just another layer of protection. And then public officials liability, so in the event that the board is sued for their actions or Pat is sued for his actions because of financial loss that somebody else incurs, in your, within the acts of the charter that you take on, you're not doing the work that you were supposed to be doing as a board, and you're sued, public officials liability is gonna kick in. The commercial umbrella is gonna sit over that limit as well. So the remainder of the coverage is in here, which I promised to go through quick. You have crime and fidelity coverage with a $150,000 limit. What most often happens is employee theft. So again, $150,000 limit in the event of some type of theft loss. And then the linebacker policy is that coverage. So you have $2 million per loss with a $2,000 deductible on that policy. Last piece here, finally, is the machinery and equipment coverage. That is essentially equipment breakdown. So equipment breakdown is excluded on commercial property forms. So this would be in the event that any of your boilers, machinery, equipment does not work, there's a mechanical failure, not wear and tear, but some type of mechanical failure and it is not usable, this coverage will pay for repair or replacement of the machinery or equipment that sits over at 114 free. So last page, which I know you all want to get to, is what are premiums year over year. So you're going to see all of the policy types on the left-hand side. You're going to see expiring premiums and then renewing policy premiums. Again, the biggest drivers of increase are property and commercial output. Like we talked about, most of that is value driven with rate increase as well. Outside of that, the other lines are primarily the same year over year, with the exception of the cyber coverage, which is a combination of a rate increase and then again that different revenue tier that you fall within. And then finally, utility dividends. You're going to see here that these have been the dividends that have paid out to the utilities throughout time. It's EMC's program. Essentially, they're looking to figure out if the program's profitable. They want to pay a dividend back to members. This is the history on the account. There was 1 year that dividends were not paid out. You'll see that in 2022. Outside of that, there have been payouts every year for the last 10 years. With ICAP, which again, we have clients that are within that program, they pay member vouchers, which is a similar concept. They have not paid vouchers out for the previous 3 years. So again, just program profitability and viability. We for Stuart Municipal Utility.
It's not in my book, but is there a dividend this year, Joe?
There is. It was just recently paid out. It was $1,706 paid back. And that was based on the workers' compensation profitability was the dividend this year.
Thank you for going through all this.
You bet. Absolutely. What questions can I help answer from the group? I know that was a lot, and I apologize for taking a lot of the board's time this evening, but we want to be thorough in our explanation and overview tonight. So, questions that I can help answer.
Do you have the 5-year claim history, like the last 5 by chance with you?
It should
It's in here and I didn't see it.
Yeah, it should be on page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If it's not on page 7, which it should be, but this might be an updated version, I can get that to the group.
Yeah, I think the packets we were looking at it don't have a lot of the information they were covering, so.
Here, I have 5 copies of this one that transparently we're not gonna do much with after this meeting anyway, so it's page 7 of that. Back where you are. Anybody else? Any other questions we can answer? Well, again, thank you for the time, and we appreciate the opportunity to serve as an agent and advisor for SMU. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Town and Country, you're up.
How are you guys?
Good.
Well, I'm Danielle and I work at Town and Country Insurance here in town. And we've been asked this year to supply a bid for insurance. So I am gonna go ahead and forward it over to Casey that's on there, I think. She would have been here, but she had to have leg surgery, so.
Oh, we're trying to get you cranked up here.
Yeah.
Go ahead and talk, Casey. Let's see how loud you are. Well, not really. It's not coming through the big speaker.
If we give you a phone number to call us, will you be able to do that? Okay.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready. It is 515-829-6367. We'll use that for the audio.
Thank you. Hello? Now we can hear you. Go ahead.
Can you all hear me now, okay?
It's much better.
Okay, fantastic. Well, it sounds like Joe did a nice job of kind of describing the marketplace. I should have introduced myself. My name is Casey Keeler, and I'm with the Iowa Communities Assurance Pool, or ICAP. I've been with ICAP since 1998. I started in claims and went to risk control, and I've been in sales and underwriting since 2000, so I've been around a while. Before that, I worked through high school and actually in fourth grade. So I've been around ICAP a very long time. I've been around public entities a very long time. ICAP ranks about 800 public entities in the state, including the 75 of the 9, about 300 in some cities and other types of public entities, including fairs and that type of those type of entities, 28Es, legislation that allows public entities to form mutual agreements. So we were a little confused when I heard the chairman's comments at the beginning of the conversation, because I was a little confused as both Danielle and I were asked last year and this year to provide a quote by the city, and that's the only reason that we're asked to participate. Both Danielle and I have certainly confusing things, so I apologize that as far as the quote goes, what I can tell you is that the market, like Joe mentioned, market's really difficult right now. It's been very, very difficult since probably 2020. It was starting to go a little difficult in 2019, and then COVID happened. It was almost like an automatic excuse to allow reinsurers to tighten up, and obviously with the supply chain issues, property pricing has gone up because it costs more to build things. But then on top of that, Iowa has all sorts of storms here, and like you've experienced, hail damage and things like that are not as normal. And so property's very expensive right now. So when you look at all of that combined, besides the fact that liability for public entities is on the rise nationally, not just locally, you can understand just that it's a difficult market. I started, like I said, in 98, and we went through a hard market in 2002, 2003. And that is nothing. That was nothing compared to what we're going through now. So it's difficult to get quotes, which is why last year we weren't able to provide you a quote because we couldn't get all of the information. I think the declarations pages John mentioned, and that is exactly what we need. Our reinsurance layers, which there's a few layers of coverage. I'm sure one of the agents in the room can talk to you about reinsurance versus your underlying coverage. But we have to go through several layers to secure coverage, and it requires answering a lot of questions, particularly when you're talking about a public entity, and even more so when talking about a public entity with a utility that generates. And so there's a lot of hoops that we have to jump through. There's a lot of things that we have to cross-check to make sure we have the right coverage for you, which is why we ask for deck pages, for expiring premiums, is to make sure that loss ratios are in line with what we're seeing, because that's a very important metric to use when you're underwriting something. So we tried last year. Danielle did all of the hard, heavy lifting work to try and get the information we asked her to get a quote, and we weren't able to get it in time. And this year has been very similar. This year, she started earlier, and we still were up against some delays in securing information like declarations. And right now, with the insurance industry, the way that I just described, reinsurance carriers see reluctance of providing all the information that they've requested as a barrier to securing coverage. So that, coupled with the fact that your loss ratios are really tough right now, I think you heard that your carrier last year paid more out in claims than they collected from you. That's another thing that reinsurance carriers are just kind of staying away from. So unfortunately, due to that, and probably the biggest thing is the reluctance to provide all the information, we're not able to provide you a quote. And we are not able to provide the city a quote as well, because we can't separate the utility out from the city properly. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. It's kind of a long-winded answer, but I promise you that we wanted to be able to provide you the quote we were asked to pass it for, but we just can't because of reasons I mentioned.
Did you guys send anybody out to do any of the policy creation that we had talked about in the beginning of the meeting?
We want travelers out there because travelers does our mechanical breakdown and the reinsurance on the property, but they wouldn't schedule the on-site visit without the requested information. They're just so busy and so reluctant right now that unless they have every I dotted and every T crossed, they won't budge. It's a very interesting time, but reinsurance by nature, they're getting stricter. There's less equity for them, so their capacity is shrinking, and that's causing them just to become very, very, very selective on who they spend time working with.
And then second question would be, if you had to pick a number of days that you would need to finish a quote, can you even estimate what that would be? Or is it just too much information you're waiting on?
I think we were really close to getting a quote a couple of times in the last week and a half, but we've had stumbling block after stumbling block. I would be happy to go back to them. They've declined a quote because of the things that I mentioned, and to get them back, giving the city of Stuart attention. We maybe run out of time at this point, but I think if you were really interested in a quote, and it doesn't sound like John's comment, it doesn't sound like you are, I would say that I would love to start in January or even earlier. I would love to come out, on site, do our own property analysis. We're still going to use your expiring information because that is what we currently have. We want to make sure that we're at least giving you an apples-to-apples quote, which is why that expiring information is so vital, and that it's complete when we get it. So I would say we might be able to get a quote. You might get a track that back and giving me some time. I'm not sure it's going to be a competitive quote. It might be, but also it could be more competitive if we had the time to do it. And I think starting in January or earlier, really taking sure that we actually want a quote and going through that process is a good idea, and not jamming this year.
Because it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work for me, it's a lot of work for them, and when you don't feel like you're really needed or wanted to give the quote, it makes it even harder.
Yeah.
So.
Any comments by the board?
I'd like to see a quote from both.
But it may not be this year because our policy renews on the first of April first.
Right.
So, and again, this is a few years ago, but the insurance on the city side kept going up, and Chip had some alternative ways to structure that in the city's budget. So the increases kept coming up, and he was able to put that in a different budget process. I called him today to see if there's any options to deal with this on the utility side, because I don't know. And maybe this could be, shared with the city on the expense increase. I don't know what theirs is, but I'm assuming it's gonna be just as much. And his suggestion was that he and Ash talk through this, and the city has a separate meeting at the end of the month on, I don't know what, they have a special meeting at the end of the month, which would be before April first, and that would allow that, but I don't think that she thinks that she can get that quote in that time. So I don't think that's the right answer, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, I agree with you, I'd like to see another quote, but, that's just where I'm at. I tried to do a little bit of legwork to see, because I don't like this 30%, increase either. But it's a lot easier to go get a quote on car insurance than it is to get on a policy like this, so.
And I will say with a quote with car insurance too, we would ask for current deck pages because that's the only way to quote apples to anything, and that's just the way it works.
That's right, it's just the way it works.
And then we would go out and do the legwork.
So,
More than one way to skin a cat.
I agree with you, it'd be nice to know, but, if she's not 99% through with this project, to say I can get it by X date, and then she'll get, what day is that meeting?
I think 27.
So if she can't say she'd have it, we could be in the exact same position then. I don't know, it's,
Do you think she could, Danielle?
Is she still on the phone?
No. Do you think you could have it by August 27th?
March.
Or March, oh my God. March 27th?
Casey?
I'm certainly willing to ask if they'll take a look at it. Like I mentioned, they've declined already, so I will definitely ask them tomorrow. They'll look at it again, and I'll push back, and then I can let Danielle know tomorrow.
my thing is, and this isn't at the agency, but at EMC, when you have no claims, you don't get a discount the next year. They just go up anyway. And so then when we get slammed for having claims, when we did it the last number of years, it just kind of makes you mad, but anyway. And it was weather related, it wasn't anything that was,
Mine's nothing against EMC.
Right.
It's just, we've got two insurance companies here in town. Let's give them both a chance.
Well, and this is a $20,000 increase that, that's, if it's the same on the city side, that's an employee's salary, or that's an increase coming from someplace.
Right.
So that's, this is have you ever had an increase that big before?
No.
So, it's not a small number. And I don't know.
I guess before we did that, I would like for someone, either of the agencies, to explain the difference between an EMC policy and the assurance pool that ICAP has. What's the difference between the two?
I can answer that, but I'm not in the room.
Go for it.
Well, I can tell you that EMC is a traditional insurance carrier. They're just like your normal stock or profit insurance carrier. ICAP is a group self-insurance pool. So what it is it just designed for Iowa public entities. Iowa public entities pool their money together, and they pay out from that money claims to the cost to administer the program, and whatever's left over remains with the pool members. And so it's really if you think about it, it's the cheapest form of insurance you can get without being self-insured. But it's like kind type of entities, so just Iowa, since 1986 have been participating in this program. And the program started in 1986 when the city of Red Oak joined. And I think it's Red Oak all the time. They're just over here. And there was no $55 million. There was only the city of Red Oak, and they put their money in. They hoped that it would work, and still works, and today we have, like I said earlier, 800 public entities. So it's really a different philosophy. It's like rent versus own. Both are good, both are good things to do. It's just whether you want to be an owner of the program. So do you want to have a say where your peers are the board of directors and there's no profit motive because all the money that doesn't get out like the administration stays with the pool? Or do you want to go and transfer your risk to a traditional insurance carrier that has profit motives? There's a thing with ICAP you should probably insurance pool. If you different stipulations. So with a traditional insurer, you tell them what I'm done, and you might have some coverage for that time period that you're with that insurance carrier, even when you're gone. But with ICAP, because it's group self-insurance, and because it's a pool, if you withdraw from the ICAP program and you take your claims with you, you take your open claims, so anything that you have open and pending, or you take your unknown claims. The unknown claims are not a big deal. You find prior acts coverage for a very nominal fee, and those unknown claims are taken care of by the next carrier. With your known claims, it's a business decision. Do you have any outstanding claims? If so, probably not a good year. Not, that might be a good year. The only reason being that's a real mechanism to protect the remaining members of the program, because you as a member don't want another member to run up losses and then leave and not continue to contribute to pay those losses off. So it's a mechanism that allows and protects the remaining members. The difference is kind of like, do you want to rent or own? If you want to buy, if you want to own, there are going to be upkeep costs and things like that. And I say that, there's some downside. But on the upside, it's a protection measure in place. But it's really a philosophical difference.
If I can speak to that.
Go ahead.
Just briefly and transparently, this is a little bit of there's some awkwardness in this. I work with Casey on accounts, so I know Casey, she knows me. We have accounts that are with ICAP. The benefit that she's stating, it can hurt a group as well. If you go into ICAP's program and you decide, hey, we're seeing year over year increases, we want to look to go to EMC, let's say, and get a quote at that time, you do take your claims with you, meaning they will discontinue payout of claims at that time. So it can hurt. I think Casey would agree, this year over year increase that EMC is giving you is not unique to EMC. I don't know if ICAP keeps their average year over year increase for renewals that are happening in this year, but I deliver those to cities and utilities and counties all across the state, and it's generally 25%. I'm explaining the same thing I'm explaining to you tonight with EMC's program. So it's market driven. It's not carrier driven. It is a hard insurance market, and that's why you're seeing increases in addition to the valuation jumps that both the municipality and utilities and cities are seeing. So
I think
Well said, Joe.
I think there's a big difference too in possibility, but traditional insurance carrier like EMC, they are a member of what's called the Iowa Guarantee Fund. And if a company, for whatever reason, defaults on coverage, the Iowa Guarantee Fund, set up by statute, will come in and begin to pay the claims that that company can't. And it's my understanding that ICAP is not part of the Iowa Guarantee Fund. Is that correct?
No, that's correct. That's a great point, John. However, I would say that what the Iowa Guarantee Fund brings to the table is very nominal to today's dollars. So the top end, maybe they changed, but the top end is $300,000 per claim, and that's not going to be paid out. If you have a claim, you're not going to get automatically $300,000. It's going to be pro rata based on every single other person that have policies at that carrier that went upside down. And I don't see it as well. So yes, but is it really valuable? $300,000 to go from.
So has the Iowa Guarantee Fund ever been invoked?
Well, that's a good question.
Coach.
So can we just do this, can we, I'm asking if this is fair, as a compromise. Can we say we would give, ICAP another 2 weeks, or until that 20, whatever meeting?
27, 28, I have.
And if no bid to consider at that point, we adopt what's been presented?
Or we could do it this way. We could, because we don't have a quote from ICAP as yet, that we approve the proposal we have from EMC contingent upon a competing bid that we would look at on April 27th, or March 27th.
I would rather see from ICAP. So they have an equal chance.
Okay.
But, I mean, I was trying to avoid another meeting, so if ICAP doesn't have everything back by the 27th, we won't be here. If they do on the 27th, we'll come, we'll look at both of them side by side. And if nobody shows up, we already approved this tonight, we're done. We're done with that.
That's what I'm saying.
We're done with the issue. If they come through, if they're able to pull this together on the 27th, Chip's already got a meeting. I'd also like to see if you and Chip can come up with some pretty way to finance this, so we don't have to stick it to the.
Well,
Yes.
you know,
Yes. Okay, so you're going with John's proposal to approve it until
contingent upon
contingent
ICAP.
on the proposal from ICAP until the 27th. If we don't get any from ICAP, we don't have to talk about it.
It's not really.
Okay? Okay, so is that a motion?
Denise, do you have a problem with us doing it that way? Okay.
We have a motion?
So, I mean, is this even worth, if this makes sense, can we ask Casey if that even gives it, if she doesn't even think that's an option on the 27th?
Would that be okay on the phone?
I think, I just emailed my, you wanted us to try and get you a quote and that we needed to run a insurance, so, I'll know by tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, that's fair enough.
What is a policy? It's gotta be approved by.
The policy expires April 1st. So we have the time, if you go with approving this contingent on the ICAP presenting information. If they do, she's gonna find out tomorrow. So if they do, we will meet on the 27th or 28th. I just have to look at the calendar and then decide on the two bids. If they saying something, say we cannot.
I'll let you know.
So the city doesn't have a proposal from ICAP now either, is that right?
Do you mind if I had just one more comment for?
Go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, a couple of things come to mind. One, I do want to just mention that everything in the packet, you know, on the front end, I understand you have to make expense decisions that go to bottom line. I would ask that the board just consider the level of service and what Janice and team do offer and have offered historically. There is true value in, you know, having municipal expertise, having folks right here in the community. We work with Ash, we've worked with Matt, we've worked with others on the team. So that, I know it doesn't equate to just a pure dollar at the bottom line, but if you would, at least consider that in your decision. The other piece too, just again, for full transparency, we've presented our information and now it's all public record. So from a fairness perspective, it is a little bit unique that now ICAP is there doing their final underwriters knows exactly to the dollar what they need to get under it to win Stuart Municipal Utilities business. So whether right or wrong, that's just the reality of the situation now. So please consider that when you're making
Yeah,
your
I would ask
decision.
the board to consider that, because
That's.
Does Casey have all the information that she needs? Do you have all the information that you need? No, at our last meeting, we had that
Yes, I
issue.
know that I won't respond, I respect what Joe just said, I wouldn't ask for your renewal information because I would take respect. We did, which is on the utility generating ability, and so I would say that the only questions that we would have function of the utility and not user number.
And Pat and I were talking about that today, actually.
Can you repeat that, please?
Yes, I may have additions on your operations, but I won't have any additional questions on your expiration premiums or your renewal premiums. I won't need any more information than that.
Okay, please let us know what kind of question you have, and we'll be glad to provide you with what you need.
Yes, sir.
Joe, correct me if I misheard you, but is there part of ICAP's proposal that we would have to go out and get independently ourselves?
No,
Yeah.
well, no, Danielle's already done it. I think it was mentioned that we don't provide the workers' compensation, and that's accurate, but we do, or Danielle has worked with the IMWCA, who stands for the Iowa Municipal Workers' Compensation Association, and both our organization and their organization are the Iowa Municipal. And so together we make it up. Danielle has secured that quote for you.
But I will wait until we have all of it.
But that's the only thing that would be separate from the rest of it.
You wanna look at additional cyber coverage and potentially equipment breakdown coverage.
Okay, I guess we came to the conclusion. I will remind you again,
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
the only other option is that I would know of is to approve this tonight. And whenever they get their bid, if it's half, then you cancel the policy you got, and I'm assuming you get refunded, and then, but you're in the middle of a policy, that doesn't be a good idea.
Right.
So,
Okay, so we'll go in with approving the EMC subject to receiving the code from the other company. If we receive it, we come back to the joint meeting to negotiate. If we don't, we move on.
yes, and the only thing would be looking at different ways to finance that, which
I will work to check
Yeah.
to
see if
see.
there's any other budget cuts there.
Okay. We're good with that? Who will make that motion? Who will make that motion?
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make it happen.
Moved by Brian,
Moved by Brian,
I'll second.
seconded by Kim. How do you vote? Let me look at my notes here. How do you vote? Brian?
Yep.
I vote aye. Shirley?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
And Kim?
thank you both. We appreciate your work. We'll work together in the next couple of weeks. And hopefully
Do you want us to present this again at the city council meeting since you're going home, or?
I don't know, we won't have we only have one more council meeting, so I think we have two council meetings here.
Okay.
It would be good if you just
Okay.
kind of highlight it, you know, and we'll give him most of the information. We won't go as long as we have,
Yeah.
because we're only missing one council member. So, but we'll give him a brief explanation to what the conclusion came to.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have enough?
Okay, now we'll go back to item number 6, Main Street Marketing Report.
All right. Let's go ahead and give this a try. I'm gonna go ahead and show the videos of the date it's set.
That's loud.
terrific. And on relatively short notice, they just put together something for everyone to do. The kids had a blast.
Downtown Stuart is totally the place to be.
Offerings and a dynamic entrepreneurial excitement that is very contagious. Please meet a few of our new business owners. Welcome to Stuart, Iowa at exit 93 off Interstate 80, the most active interchange between Des Moines and Council Bluffs. We are proud of our commercial growth, but the real gem lies just a couple minutes north. Our historic downtown is revitalized and bustling with new shops, food and beverage offerings, and a dynamic entrepreneurial excitement that is very contagious. Please meet a few of our new business owners.
We recently opened the Stuart Scoop for ice cream and pizza business. Come for a visit soon. I am Katie Adams, the new owner of Stuart Flowers and Gifts. Come see the beauty and feel the excitement.
It's been so fun to bring the shopping experience to a small town because it's all about a small town.
Downtown Stuart is the place to be. Downtown Stuart is the place.
Stuart is totally the place to be.
Okay, so I have asked about marketing, some funds for marketing. Nate Westry, Main Street Marketing, has submitted a proposal a while back, and I think the first go around we had some technical difficulty. The utility has been asked to participate in some of that funding, and I know some people squawk about the price. But the majority of that is going towards video production. So currently, small videos are what gets people's attention. It's the main driver in getting with marketing, and it's been an effective tool to get just basically kind of a message out there. So my goal as an economic development is to get a message out there to the public about what Stuart has to offer, whether it's housing, whether it's the downtown businesses, land that's available for future businesses. I got to get the message out. So I think we've done a great job in some aspects compared to other communities. We're doing good at word of mouth, but we could definitely do a whole lot better. I need to get the message out. We've got a lot to offer, and so I'm asking you to consider participating with the City of Stuart.
Matt, where can you use this information? I mean, where can you take this to make a presentation?
This would be on all social media, so it'd be YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that. And then Nate would set me up as an administrator on these social media accounts, and then I can view the reports.
So the proposal that's been put forth has gone to the Development Corporation and the city, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and then it's supposed to be considered by us, and it's arbitrary, it can be zero, it can be $1,200 a month, is that the range?
You're asking for utility to contribute.
But I mean, what are the ranges? This is what we went through the last meeting.
It'd be $1,200
Total?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's currently for this year, so it's.
Yeah. I'm just saying the hotel motel tax was just increased 3 years ago, went from 5 to 7%. And that seems like a great place to start. I don't know what the city can afford if it's $1,200 a month or the Development Corporation, but with a 30% increase in insurance, I don't feel as though it's the utility's place to jump into economic development. But my hat's turned on that issue, just, different chair.
Yeah, so,
And man, I disagree with you. I think the price you quoted here is more than reasonable.
I believe it is. I know when I was a real estate agent, it was costing me $10,000 per video. So we're asking for $1,200 a month. So Nate's willing to give quite a bit of his time into this.
It's not that it's not a good thing. It's an unbudgeted item, and we've got Xenia increases. We've got a 30% increase in property insurance, what else is unbudgeted?
So,
Budgeted.
Yeah, I mean, that's just,
A lot of the stuff, anything
Yeah.
that we didn't talk about it in the budget work
it goes
session.
right back to raising rates.
all right, well, at the same time though,
I
I'm
don't
looking
think
to,
this is a great thing, 'cause it's not that.
so I'm looking to increase towards marketing towards our housing development. I'm looking towards marketing for businesses, which creates a utility customer. So, the city council had asked me to bring it to your attention and asked for participation and going to go towards the hotel motel tax as well. But, I don't think that's gonna fund 100% of it either.
But that's what I was getting at. I thought that it was open-ended, it didn't have to be 1,200, it could be 0 to 1,200. So is it feasible for the city and the development corporation to fund this through hotel motel tax and their standard funds? I don't know, I don't care, but, we did the downtown, electrical items, and how much was that up?
10 million.
So that's 10,000 on top of the 20,000, and that's a perpetual expense. I don't know, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, but I don't wanna.
And I would counter that, Brian, by saying we do have a responsibility for development.
Yeah, I
The
agree,
board
but I
definitely has it. And I guess where I'm coming from and what I would suggest is that we fund this for a year, see how it goes, and then we can throw it up for grabs. But I definitely think this is something that either the city or the utility has to do this. It's the only thing for years, for a long, long time, alls we've had to offer outside of Stuart to promote Stuart was Interstate 80. And we've hung our hat on that for a long, long time. Now we have some businesses that have begun to come in and be successful. The events we've had, they have promoted through the chamber and SEED has begun to show some fruit. I think we are capable of funding this, and I think we should, at least for the first year. That's where I'm at.
Thank you, but, so, I was looking at, trying to pool many resources together.
To cheapen it up for everybody.
Yes, and so, we've got some great momentum going on with the city, and I want to add some fuel to it. So, any help,
I think it's a very valuable thing, I think you're right, those little snapshot videos, again, the city's got more economic development tools and financial resources to pull on than a revenue-driven business that's a direct stab to the neighbor next door that has to have their rates raised. And we can't measure the success of this, right? It's not something that we can attribute a return on or say we're providing our current residents a value. It's not measurable that way. And I do think it would be valuable, but when you get all these other competing resources for that same dollar,
One thing I would add into this too is here we're being asked to participate in part of the fee to this. If I'm correct, it's a total fee of $1,200, and we're being asked to fund what we feel is appropriate from the utility board to that $1,200 a month expense.
Yeah.
We've got a proposal here, but we weren't asked to be part of the group to agree on what is being provided. Here we're just being asked, hey, can you provide some money to that without any input from us and say, do we agree with what is being proposed here? And we don't have an opportunity to really decide, do we think the number of videos being provided or the number of posts being provided is adequate? Or do we think we need to look at, can we trim some of this back down, see what opportunities this creates, and then look at revisiting that in the future? So that would be one of my complaints, is we're just being asked to contribute, but not be part of the group that decides upon what is agreed upon.
And Craig makes an excellent point here, because and I know you probably don't want to go back into production on this again, but some of that video, I think we be more apt to be part of it if we talked about some of the infrastructure that's here too.
So there's more videos, there'd be more to be done. That, one of those is a sampling of something that could be done, something that could be added to go from there. So that's why they call it a teaser.
Would you like to take the proposal, kind of look at it, and maybe you can have another presentation?
I'd like to see the city council go to fund the seed.
Okay.
Without hotel tax.
I don't know about that, but.
And that's a possibility too. I mean, that's
what I'm, it's a, you know, that's what that, you read the definition of that ballot language, that's where that money's supposed to be spent. That's just,
I respect that, but we're just trying to make the cost spread out a little bit, so city and utility and chamber, hotel tax and all those stuff, it's spread out to kind of help each budget a little bit, instead of just going to the city or going to the city or going to the utility. That's the whole idea about it. It's something good that we need to do. It's just a matter of how we fund it to the best of our ability.
and like I said, I think it was great, we did the downtown, the generators
Yes.
and the outlets.
Yes.
You know, I can't get over that, you know, and I know that that's for the reason we already heard.
Yes.
But I don't know, I'm more conservative that way, and I'd rather see the city and the city take that first step on a small basis, and then maybe we can come back in later if it's productive. We could have the input you're talking about, revisit it, maybe grow it at that point. But
Matt, would you work with Pat to see what we could include on infrastructure and that?
Oh, yes, so, you know, this is, the idea is, you know, I guess, it's still in the infancy stage, you know, trying to, but we've got to get something going, and getting a lot of positions. Marketing, it's hard to sell it, okay? You know, when it comes to this paying for it. Everybody likes the benefits of it, but nobody likes the cost of it. And it's something that we always everybody puts it down at the bottom of their list to do. It's at the top of your list to get done, I gotta do this, but everything else takes precedence. And so.
the 1,200 is an arbitrary number, the first year it could be 500 spread amongst the other references, is that right?
It's
1,200 a month.
Where did that number come from?
He analyzed. That basically covers the of the videos.
Okay, so
Matt, let's.
Labor would be.
like John said, you and I and Pat can work together on that subject.
And I'd like to hear what the city council has to say after their meeting.
Yes.
We only have 2 minutes to cover this. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for hearing me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on here, because we're gonna run out of here.
Yeah, okay. So,
Number 9, Iowa Utilities Board Reliability Plan.
This is something that the Iowa Utility Board has us submit to them every year now. This will be the second year. It's the same thing that we submitted last year, the only thing different is the date. But it's a requirement that they put upon us now. And it's just to make sure that we're keeping the electrical system up and it's not falling apart.
Can I get a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion.
Moved by Shirley, seconded by
I'll second.
Craig. Proceed to vote. Craig,
Aye.
Kim, Brian,
Yes.
and Shirley. Okay. Item number 10 is release of utility easement, quick step.
So what we got out there, it's to build. We have an easement out there with abandoned water lines in it that we no longer use. We don't want need for it. So this is just the procedure.
Moved by Brian,
I'll second.
seconded by Kim. How do you vote? Kim,
Yes.
Brian?
Yep.
Shirley? and Craig.
Aye.
You want to do city administrator?
No, we have evidence.
Number 11, oh, the other resolution. Setting policy for assessment of costs for transformers and pads. We talked about this last month for commercial customers. What have you guys come up with?
Well, it should have been included in the pack. Wayne Dagan, our attorney, he came up with this. How it would be at the board's discretion whether or not we made commercial customers pay for transformers and because everything is triple or quadrupled in price. And whether or not we want to go this route, that's up to you guys. It, just because we passed the resolution, it still gives us discretion to do what we think is fair. Yeah, I mean, anything, we can change anything we need to. It's just a case by case basis that we do.
Now, do we need to add any verbiage in there about we supply the transformer, not the customer? Or do we feel it's kind of implied, or how's that work?
Normally it's implied that we're gonna supply the transformer. Because nobody else wants to go out and buy one, especially now. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to
Is there a second? Seconded by Brian. I vote aye. Shirley?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Kim? And Brian. Anybody report? If you want to have a question, you might. Okay, we stand adjourned. We met in time.
Yes. 6:30.
Yep. All right.